Hi everybody, Dr. Jason W. Morrison, theologist, New South Wales, Australia. Now, one points is what turns good intent evil. And we find in Romans chapter 7 that sin, people that think they need to do good to make God happy or stop him from being sad, ultimately turn sin on. They make sin work. Now, very unusual. The Times of Israel, this has just come out, just today. Study read history of sexual abuse among formerly orphans. This is critical. This is critical to religious people today. What they don't realize is, if you try and keep the Mosaic law, you are going to turn yourself in some way or another evil. Whether it's on the surface, working underneath, or whether it's just full-blown. Now watch this, let's read this. Study finds widespread history of sexual abuse among formerly Orthodox. Research by 2 Orthodox Jewish researchers finds link among 300 victims between experiences and subsequent rejection of religion. This will be very interesting because the Christian religion and the Jehovah's Witness religion comes from the Jews. While Jews are no more likely to be sexually abused than other Americans, individuals who have left the Orthodox community are more than 4 times as likely to have been molested as children than the general population, a new study has found. So what I believe that says is they're leaving the Orthodoxy because of the abuse that they experienced within it. So that again, the study by 2 Orthodox Jewish researchers saved more than 300 participants over a 3-year period. Surveyed more than 300 participants over a 3-year period. Its authors, Dr. David Rosmarin of Harvard and Dr. David Pelkostos of Yeshiva University, said their report was an attempt to address a lack of research on the prevalence of sexual abuse in the Jewish community. Very interesting, isn't it? While the rate of abuse was higher among formerly Orthodox individuals, Rosmarin of R&P also found that abuse was associated with significantly lower levels of intrinsic religiosity and lower levels of religious observance among victims who chose to remain part of the Orthodox community. The report supports the anecdotal evidence I've seen that indicates a close link between abuse in a religious context and the subsequent rejection of that community, its practices, values, and often everything it stands for, said Manny Wakes, the founder of Zedek, an Australian advocacy group for victims of sexual abuse. This is proof for what we already knew. I met many people who were religious, especially within the ultra-Orthodox community, who left because of sexual abuse. What people don't understand is that if you think you need to make God happy or stop him from being sad, you turn evil. Romans chapter 7. Rosmarin is director of the Spiritual and Mental Health Program at McLean Hospital in Massachusetts and is an assistant professor of psychology in the Department of Psychiatry at Harvard Medical School. According to the study, formerly Orthodox individuals were substantially more likely to report abuse than those who remain part of the community. Perhaps an obvious point given the inhibitions regarding speaking out in tight-knit communities. Exactly right, including, this is relative to the Jehovah's Witnesses. If these people can't handle their religion, how can we? Various Haredi Orthodox organizations have debated in recent years whether and how to report child abusers to law enforcement agencies. Is this ringing a bell, everyone? Among the participants in the study, 100 were Orthodox from birth, 98 became Orthodox later in life, 138 were non-Orthodox, and 36 were raised in Orthodox and later left. According to Rosmarin, this included Hasidic respondents from the more insular Brooklyn communities and Williamsburg and Borough Park. They must be American places. The study appears in the July 2018 issue of the Child Abuse and Neglect Journal. While Rosmarin said he hasn't fully fleshed out the causal relationship between abuse and the abandonment of religion, he believes the study was pretty conclusive that there is one. which seemed to back up previous research showing that the experience of sexual abuse interferes with people's spiritual lives, an effect not only limited to the formerly Orthodox, he said. An Orthodox victim who grew up Orthodox and is still Orthodox is less likely to have strong levels of belief than their colleagues who haven't been sexually abused, Rosmarin said. Some have expressed skepticism regarding the research by Rosmarin and Pelkovitz. Whilst declining to comment on the study directly, Lani Santo, executive director of Footsteps, an organization that helps former Haredim integrate into mainstream American life, said that while we certainly see high rates of abuse reported by people who have left the community, the decision to leave Orthodoxy was not necessarily due to the abuse itself. Santos said the communal response to abuse was more significant than the declining religiosity brought on by the abuse itself. If someone experiences abuse as a child and told a parent who spoke to the school and nothing is done, it opens up a Pandora's box of questions for them, he said. People who made the very difficult decision to leave ultra-Orthodoxy are leaving because it's a place where their questions are not necessarily welcome. Sounds like the Jehovah's Witnesses, doesn't it? And other religions as well. Queen's College sociologist Samuel Hillman, an expert on American Orthodoxy, questioned the study methodologies, telling JTA that he believed that the study undercounted Haredim from the more insular Hasidic movements, especially as much of the questioning was done online. The connection between abuse and the abandonment of religion was also not particularly simple, Hillman said, calling it a chicken and egg scenario. Those who are already on the borderline of deviance are much more liable to be subject of abuse because the abusers figures these people are already borderline and are less likely to be believed if they say something. Hillman used deviance in the sense of individuals who deviate from the religious norms of their religious communities, which often include shunning secular education, limiting social contact with non-Haredim, and dressing according to distinct rules of modesty. Rings a bell, doesn't it? Wax, who grew up with the Chabad Hasidic community and was molested as a child, said that when abuse occurs within a religious context in places such as synagogues and ritual baths, subsequent cover-ups by insular religious communities lead victims to lose all belief in the so-called religious leaders. Rosmarin said he spoke to patients who were abused victims and did not feel comfortable speaking about their experiences with members of their Haredi communities. As a result, he said, such victims never receive the kind of validation they need to cope with their trauma. This lack of validation always compounds the typical religious doubts such as questioning God's justice, and asking how God could allow such things to happen. Yechiel, an abusive victim living in New York tri-state area who asked to be identified by a pseudonym, described how a yeshiva classmate groomed and abused him for a number of years while teachers and administrators ignored the warning signs. I didn't tell anyone because I didn't know if I would be believed, he said. Looking back now, there were so many clues my rabbis could have picked up. I feel they were purposely naive. The only answer is they wanted to cover it all up. That's really affected me. Raquel began losing respect for the community and its elders and said the only reason he is still formally religiously observant is for the sake of his wife and children. While he has built his own personal relationship with God, the actual practices of religion have become incredibly difficult. I struggle with Shabbat and a lot of the halachot, Jewish laws, he said. Many rules are too much for me, and that's the same for all of us. Now this is coming from a Jewish man, Orthodox man. As for those who have left Orthodox Judaism behind, Rachiel said that he fully understands their decision and believes they will be judged more favorably by God than the rabbis and communal leaders. It's completely not their fault that they left, he said. According to Maya Sewald, executive director of Jewish Community Watch, a New York-based victims advocacy group, the tendency of insular religious groups to cast doubt on victims' claims and defend alleged abusers has far-reaching effects on children who were molested. If you had a community that had a leader that called on people to come forward and said, we believe you and will protect you, Sewell said, I believe 150% that people wouldn't be leaving in the way that they are. And isn't this an echo of what's happening in the Jehovah's Witness cult? Now, these people are the Jews. They can't keep their rules. It's making them go evil. Now, bear with me. Now, Paul was a Jew of Jews. This is Romans chapter 7, okay? And he says that just as a husband died, they had the right to marry somebody else. He's speaking to Jews, okay? What shall we say then? Is the law sin? So, no, it's not. On the contrary, I would not have known sin except through the law. In other words, when he tried to keep it, he couldn't, and that showed him that there was a nature inside him that was evil. For if I would not have known covetousness unless the law had said, you shall not covet. But sin, taking opportunity by the commandment. Now this is what we lose, and this is what we miss as readers of the Bible. But sin, taking opportunity by the commandment. So how does sin take opportunity? By the things we think we need to do or not do to make God happy or stop him from being sad. And it produced in me all manner of evil desire. So it just incites desire. For apart from the law, sin was dead. So when we think we need to do something or not do something to make God happy or stop him from being sad, guess what we're doing? We're giving sin opportunity. That's all we're doing. We're giving sin an opportunity to bring evil desire into us and cause us to do wrong things. And that's why there's so much religious trouble in the world today. I was alive once without the law, but when the commandment came, sin revived and I died. And the commandment which was to bring life, I found to bring death. Because for sin, taking opportunity, what? By the commandment, deceived him, and it killed him. Now, when it say it killed him, it said it took over his mind. It's talking about taking over his mind. So there's a little insight into Romans 7. You can go through that yourself. But don't underestimate the power of thinking you need to do or not do something to make God happy or stop him from being sad, because all that's going to do is give rise to your evil desire. This is Dr. Jason W. Morrison, Theologist, New South Wales, Australia. Bye for now. Yeah, Dr. Jason Morrison, Theologist again. I just want to say thank you for watching the videos, and I hope you got plenty of self-rediscovery and freedom out of it. If you watched it on YouTube, please share or like, maybe even comment. If you watched it on Facebook, like, comment, share. But most of all, get out and live. This isn't a rehearsal. You've got a one-off life. Don't let your loyalty and your faithfulness blind you to the life that you should be experiencing. Till the next video, thank you for watching, and bye for now.